Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Welcome back, and just to bring you up to date on the developing situation in Turkey, it looks now that it's detained 6,000 people. Numbers have shot up since we came on air following Friday's coup attempt. The cleansing operation is continuing, says the Justice Minister in Turkey in a television interview. Some 6,000 detentions have taken place. The number could surpass 6,000. I think most of us expect that it will. Now, earlier, the two Labour MPs challenging Jeremy Corbyn for the leadership of the Labour Party were on the Andrew Marr Show. Let's have a listen to what they had to say.
How do you decide between the two of you who is the more popular among Labour MPs? How do you resolve this question? Which of you goes forward?
Well, we've got a nominations process. I think it's very clear. We've got Hustings tomorrow.
So whoever gets the more nominations
well, that's one way in which we could do it. Or we could make an agreement between ourselves. But my view is whoever is the person who commands the largest degree of support in the PLP is the unity candidate, and that's the person who should go forward and take Jeremy on.
I think we have to have the person that's most likely to beat Jeremy Corbyn, and I think that's me.
Right, so you're not standing aside under any circumstances. Granita restaurant is still open, you know.
We're not going to do, we're not going to do a deal here on your sofa, beautiful though it is.
Steve, Angela Eagle seemed a little bit uncomfortable there when talking about the need for only to be one candidate. Will we proceed with two non-Corbynistas up against Mr Corbyn, or will it be whittled down to one?
She's uncomfortable because she wants it to be her. And I still think there will be enormous pressure from Labour MPs to only go forward with one. Because if not, I mean, the whole purpose of this is to try and get rid of Jeremy Corbyn. If you split the vote right from the beginning of this sequence, this mad, dysfunctional sequence, that lessens the possibility, which is already pretty limited, of them removing him. So I imagine there will be huge pressure this week for it to be down to one, but who knows whether they'll agree to that, those two who were sitting on a sofa earlier this morning.
As someone who lives and breathes British party politics, among others, if anybody was to ask me this morning, what is the franchise that will choose the next Labour leader, I'm afraid I couldn't answer that question. Can you?
I think Angela Eagle on this show last week couldn't answer it. They themselves are stumped about the central party machine and its own decisions.
I don't feel so bad then.
No, we're all right. The burden's on them and they still can't do it. I imagine Jeremy Corbyn's ultimate advantage in this contest is the relative obscurity of the challenges. Angela Eagle and Owen Smith have a lot going for them, but this is not Blair and Brown. These are politicians of the second tier. And he can justifiably say, 10 months on from winning a commanding mandate, do these two, either one of them, really justify a huge shift in the vote? And I don't think they do. If he were to win, I mean, the Labour moderates will do their best to defeat him, but if he were to win again for the second time within a year, surely the game is up. I understand it's a very tribal party. They're scarred by memories of the SDP. They don't want to break things up. But surely a second victory for Corbyn would justify a resignation of the whip by a large number of Labour MPs and at least an attempt to become a different kind of centre-left party.
Well, that would be a schism, wouldn't it? And a much deeper, broader one than when the Social Democrats were formed against Michael Foot's Labour Party.
Yes, I mean, I would agree with what they both said on that. I mean, I think it's remarkable how quiet the more prominent figures of the so-called moderates are. It's left to Angela Eagle and Owen Smith. As Janan said, second-tier politicians, most people won't have heard of them. What has happened to people like Chuka Umunna, people that have bigger recognisability, particularly in London? They seem to be sitting it out and actually just talking to moderate MPs. I think we'll see a lot of younger Labour MPs just leaving politics for a few years. I mean, whether they choose to do the drastic thing and trigger by-elections is another question. But I don't think that many of those who've come into politics and are at the early part of their careers will want to see this through for another few years.
Well, if Mr Corbyn's re-elected, I guess he must be favourite, though once we know the franchise, but he must be favourite. Do Owen Smith said that he would show loyalty to whoever wins this morning. But will most of the 80% of Labour MPs who have no confidence, will they buckle down? Will they be prepared to serve in a Corbyn cabinet?
No,
shadow
they
cabinet?
can't do it. I'm doing, it's out on Radio 4 at the moment, the next one's tomorrow night, a thing about Corbyn's first year, a series. And if you stand back from the chaos, two things are obvious. Jeremy Corbyn cannot continue leading with this current set of MPs, hence all the talk of deselections and all the rest of it. These MPs cannot carry on serving under Jeremy Corbyn. Those two things are just strikingly obvious. When you chronicle what's happened over the last 10 months, those two things stand. And so if Jeremy Corbyn were to carry on leading, he'll need another set of MPs, and the current set will have to go off in a different direction. Nothing else is
But none of that can
feasible.
happen this side of 2020. It means they all have to be deselected, or most of them.
Well,
Unless
For
there's an early election,
which
of
would
course.
mean that Labour would go in. That's also, there could be early elections, but on the basis that there's not. Labour would go into the 2020 election cycle in a state of total civil war.
No, you would have a separate parliamentary party forming if that were to happen.
Who would get the brand?
Well, I'll tell you what was interesting for people I've spoken to is that the bigger parliamentary party would become the opposition, the main opposition, sorry. So whoever
With
led
all
that
the
would become
things
the
that
leader
go
of
with that.
and go with all of that. So it's
But
quite
who keeps the Labour
But,
brand?
As the others have been saying, whether you have the people around big enough to navigate these hurdles is a huge question. There aren't the sort of big figures that there were around in the late 70s, early 80s in the Labour Party. Another symptom of its dysfunctionality is the lack of these very big figures that there used to be around.
There is a fight for the soul of the Labour Party going on, and there were some ads appeared in the papers this morning. I think we can just have a look at one at the moment. 48 hours to save Labour. Saving Labour is the hashtag there. And I think this is from what you should call the non-Corbynista part. They want you to join up. They want you to pay the full fee. It's hard. Do you know who's behind this ad?
I don't actually. No,
isn't
I
that
don't.
a bit strange?
There was a sort of attempt. It's now £25 to sign up.
And you've
wasn't
got
there?
2 days to do it, is that
I
right?
think there's a very short window. I think there was an attempt to get people to sign up to actually join the Labour Party to vote. But that, of course, now has been rendered invalid by this convoluted set of rules where people who joined from February or something, I don't know, can't now have
Even
a
you
vote.
don't know.
So,
And you've just made a documentary.
yeah, it doesn't go into any of this, or else it wouldn't have anyone listening. So I think there will be an attempt to get as many people on, because clearly this, in a way, is the last. I think if Jeremy Corbyn wins, they surely aren't going to have another leadership contest in a year, so it's going to get even more absurd.
Either they have to buckle
So
under, or
either
they have
to
to
decide to back him at that point
break.
if he were to win, or to do something else, but not to have surely another leadership contest.
There is I mean, you would have thought by now, in terms of joining, that we've reached peak trot, that there just aren't any more trots out there that could join.
You'd be surprised.
But have we reached, are there enough moderates out there? Because I've seen a lot of moderate Labour supporters, probably the ones behind this ad as well, some of them with a fair bit of money, kind of gearing people, moderate Labour supporters, to come. Are there enough of them to make a difference?
Well, we may not have reached peak trot. I mean, Islington's a very populous borough. You could milk it for more members. Getting moderates to sign up has always been this project talked about within the Labour Party ever since Corbyn emerged last year. And the reason it's so difficult is that, by definition, if you are a political moderate, are you particularly engaged enough to join and pay £25? People of moderate views are often defined by being sort of
Aren't they all in Tuscany?
indifferent to the process.
Just in 20 seconds, he energised more than the so-called hard left last summer.
Yes, that's
there
true.
were a range of people going to those rallies, some drawn into politics
Lots of young
for the
people
first
who hadn't
time.
been.
And so it's a wider appeal than that, but it's one that Labour MPs will not sign up to.
Okay,
And that is the problem
let me stop you,
that
because I
is
just want to
insoluble.
briefly, because we'll have plenty of time to do it as the months unfold. The May government. We've all been surprised by the radical nature of the changes, not just in personnel, but in government department suggests to me that she's actually been thinking about all this for much longer than we
yes.
ever thought.
Yeah.
She kept quiet during the referendum campaign. We now know what she really was doing. And of course, you want to put the smack of your imprint as you come in. But has she unnecessarily made enemies of people that she didn't have to make enemies of, like, for example, young Dominic Raab?
Well, I think she has certainly made some pretty staunch enemies. I mean, I received a call on Friday night from somebody who had been in Downing Street who was absolutely hopping mad at the treatment of people in Downing Street. You know, the scale of the revolution that's gone on actually inside Number 10. And, you know, we have seen characters like Anna Soubry, who was ostensibly on Theresa May's side of the argument. She was a Remainer and a senior minister and has now flounced off saying she's not prepared to serve
Nicky Morgan?
under... Indeed, and these people could be extremely powerful enemies. But
Why did she do it?
Well, I think that Theresa May has made a very strong statement and actually, you know, very impressively put the people she wants in places. And, you know, it will be up to those ministers who she's put, the Brexiteers, to make a good fist of it, and we will see.
I understand that she wanted to be seen to put her own stamp on it. But my question was, has she made... she was bound to make enemies and she hasn't resolved from that at all. But has she made some enemies of people that she did not need to make enemies of?
I'm sure she has, and it's a risk to take when your majority is an effective 12 to 16 seats. But that makes me think she assumes it won't be 12 to 16 seats within a year's time, because the option of going to the country again while Labour are in disarray and while her majority is so weak is there before her. Maybe not this winter because it would be unconventional, but in the spring, if she's 10, 15 points ahead in the polls, all it would take is the repeal of the Fixed Term Parliaments Act for her to go to the country.
But she'd have to get that through the Lords as well as the Commons. They probably wouldn't go with that.
Well, many of the Lords weren't thrilled with the Act when it was initially introduced and under the last coalition.
We've only got a few seconds. Do you think she might go for let's rule out this autumn, just for the sake of it. Do you think she might go next spring?
I think, actually, autumn is the only chance to do it. If you drag it on and on, it becomes very difficult.
As
You have to
Gordon
rule it out
Brown
unequivocally at some point.
Okay.
So not next spring, possibly November.
Then we better get a summer break if it's going to be this autumn. But that's it for us for the summer.
I've been